Señora Constance, usted puede recordar si quiere. Yo sé que Free está en work, pero para darle permiso, no, ni siquiera. Okay, so today we are going to do, we're going to finish up with Saturn and Star. And I think I'm going to skip an activity because I think, we don't need to beat that dead horse. But we're going to, continue on to our spin changing verbs. So hopefully you got another device where you can, I just opened that document up, and we're going to be talking about that in a few shakes. But before we go there, we're going to finish up Saturn and Star. I think the most important page out of that whole pack would be the page that's the last part, where you have both verbs said and start together, and that would be and I had it ready. That would start on page 111. So in your said and start, I think we started to do an activity on Monday, but I said we'll stop right there. But we're gonna skip, because you get it. We're gonna skip that part, and we're gonna go down to number 3, where it says adjectives used with said or a star. Okay, so we've talked about how certain adjectives or adverbs will go in front of the noun, and it makes the sentence change what it means. Like we learned that if you say él es un hombre bueno, let's say mujer. Ella es una mujer buena. She is a nice girl. But if I switch it around to say ella es una buena mujer, it changes the whole meaning of the sentence to say that she's a great woman. I mean, she's not necessarily nice or good. She's great. I mean, she's done things in her life. She has recognition, that kind of great. So this is gonna kind of tap in that a little bit. It's not gonna go to position. What it's gonna do is talk about the difference where ser and estar makes those words mean something totally different. And then here we're talking about characteristics or conditions. We got to know the difference between characteristics and conditions. A characteristic, what would you consider a characteristic of somebody? If a person is always smiling all the time, then that person's characteristic is a happy person. He's a happy person. That's a characteristic. But let's say if the person he's always frowning all the time, but let's say he just hit the lottery and won $1,000 and he's all happy, that's a condition. It's a condition. That doesn't, you generally not like that. So that's a condition. And that's going to make the difference between said and a star. Let's look at number 3 at the bottom of page 111. And you see that it says adjectives used with said or a star. Some adjectives may be used with either said or a star, but the meaning of an adjective used with the said would differ from its meaning when used with the star. For example, Julio es bueno or malo. Julio is good or bad. That's a characteristic. I mean, you talk about a person that's generally bad or generally good. Not meaning 100%, but generally. La sopa está buena. The soup is good. La sopa está mala. The soup is bad. Here we're talking about a condition. Now, this person is saying that this soup is at this restaurant is bad right now. That's what we eat now. We went out to eat and it's bad, but normally it's good here though. Normally the food is good here. The soup is really good here. But that would be a characteristic. But tonight is not good. That's a condition. So based on which verb I use, will let the person understand what you're saying. Are we getting that?
Yeah.
All right. Look at some more on page 112. Es listo. He is smart. He is clever. But está listo. It's saying now the whole sentence changes. He's ready. So the word listo in this case means both things. It means ready or clever or smart or clever, how you want to say it. The difference is When I use ser, I'm talking about a person, how a person is. He's smart. It's a characteristic. Es listo. But of course, with estar, I'm using it's changed to being ready. It's a condition. But yes, so it changed the whole meaning of the word. Es pálido, está pálido. He is pale complexioned, and then he is pale. The condition is something it's not nowhere near permanent. It's just it's happening for some reason. For some reason, it's happening right now. It's not normal. Es seguro, está seguro. Es seguro meaning it is safe. Está seguro. He is sure. So here you see that it means something. Here the difference, the definition changes completely. Um, él es vivo. He is sharp. Él está vivo. He's alive. Es viejo. He is old. Está viejo. He looks old. So, and you're not saying he looks old right there either. You're giving a sense that he looks old. Él es aburrido. He is boring. Él está aburrido. He is bored.
Mm.
And they're actually alluding to another piece of grammar that we are not going to talk about right now, but that's what they're doing here. So, first of all, any questions about this said and start thing? What I will say about said and start is that a lot of this is going to come with time. Don't forget that in these verb studies, we're just touching bases on the verbs. So do not try to kill yourself and learn all these rules, and don't do that to yourself, because we will be going back over these again in the book. But this verb study is going to give you a crash course on the verbs and what's going on with them. 9 times out of 10, what you learn in your verb study, when you get back to the book is not going to require you to know half of all that. All right, so don't kill yourself. But just know, remember this: ser will be characteristic, and estar will be condition. And back in the day, we said ser being permanent and estar being temporary. It's all the same mindset. It's all the same mindset. The condition is something that happened because of something. It's just temporary. All right. So we're gonna leave the. I don't know. Let's see what time we got. Yeah, we're gonna leave the world set and stuff. I think we had enough of that verb. All right. If you get a chance to, or if you can look into the Google Classroom, and you'll notice that I have opened up this next verb study. It says stem changing verbs. This is here. We're still talking about the present tense, and we are talking about stem changing verbs, the verbs that change, the stem changes along with the conjugation. So, like in two, it says stem changing verbs in IR. Change the stem vowel in the present tense as follows. Now, let me tell you something. I'm going to say this at the beginning of this so that you can, don't be discouraged. When I learned Spanish, we did not learn it like this. They didn't group these words like this and this we didn't have none of that. It just came naturally. Certain times you're going to hear certain words and it's not going to make sense. It's not going to sound right. Certain verbs you're going to notice. If you got sentir, means to feel, but then you have consentir. Well, naturally, the consentir is going to be conjugated like sentir. It's the same word inside of it. So don't look at all these endings and changing this to that to this to that to this to that. I mean, if you want to get that technical with it, help yourself. But it's not. We didn't do that, and I have no problem with conjugating any of these verbs. We didn't learn them groups like that, because I would have probably had a fit if we did. If you had to ask me today, well, if our ending verbs, in stem changing verbs, what do they change to? I'm looking at you like you crazy. I'm like, what? But I can speak to it, no problem. I can do it, but it's like who learns it like that? That's a lot of jumping in the head. So we're not gonna spend a lot of time on these, because a lot of these you already know. All right, so let's just go down to number 2 on page 17, and the 3 verbs they give you is consentir, dormir, and pedir. Consentir means to consent, dormir means to sleep, and pedir means to ask for, to request. Now, I want you to be mindful of pedir. Pedir means to ask for. You cannot use that to say to ask. la la la. It has to be asked for. And consentir, it is conjugated as such. Consiento, conscientes, consciente, consentimos, consienten. Dormir, to sleep. Duermo, duermes, duerme, dormimos, and duermen. Pedir, to ask for. Pido, pides, pide, pedimos, piden. The cool part about it is they give you the verbs that are conjugated just like those verbs. I look at consentir. I see all these verbs are conjugated the same way. Same stem changing verbs. Advertir, convertir, divertirse, hervir, mentir, preferir, referir, sentir, and sentirse. All those are conjugated the same way as consentir. So, Mr. Alexander, how would I conjugate the verb preferir? Conjugate it for me.
Preferir.
Hmm?
Be pref prefien pref prefiento
What?
prefientes.
Preferir, to prefer.
Yeah,
Oh, that's what you conjugate and do it again now?
because the e and would it be the second e that's changing or the first e?
It'd be second E.
Right. So it'd be prefiento, or would it be prefiero?
Prefiero, okay, yes, prefiero.
Okay. Prefiero,
Mhm.
prefieres,
There you go.
prefiere, uh, prefe, preferimos,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and prefiere.
Okay. Senora Constance, how would you conjugate the verb mentir, to lie?
Minto?
I'm sorry. Say it
Min,
again.
is it minto?
How you spelling that?
I M I N T O.
Okay, miento, miento. Okay.
M-I-M-I-E-N. Okay. Miento. Mien Mace. Mientes.
Okay.
Miente. Mienimos.
Mm-mm-mm. What happens to the T?
Mientimos.
Mentimo. Now there, now look at your nosotros form up top. You drop the I right there. So it should be mentimos. It goes back to the regular conjugation, and then it goes back to the I again, to the last form.
Mientimos. Mien.
Yes.
Mien.
Miente.
Mien.
So you notice that the I is injected into all the forms except the nosotros. The nosotros forms, they take the I back out, and it's back to the regular conjugation again for some reason. All right. So verbs that's conjugated like dormir, they have dormirse and morir and morirse. To fall asleep and to die. We're gonna skip all those. Let's look at verbs conjugated like pedir, despedir, despedirse, gemir, impedir, medir, reír, reñir, repetir, servir, sonreír, and vestir or vestirse. So I'm gonna conjugate one of them. So I'm gonna look at medir, which means to measure. And so how do I conjugate that? I'm gonna say yo mido, mides, mide, medimos, miden, because it's conjugated like pedir. That being the case, how would you conjugate the verb sonreír, Alexander?
Okay. Sonreír.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be hmm,
Let me give you a better one. Do vestir.
bestie.
Vestir. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would it be visto?
Yep.
Okay. Visto, vistes, viste, vestimos, and visten.
Good job. And Miss Constance, impedir, to prevent.
Impedo.
Good.
Impedes. Impede. Impedimos. Impeding.
Okay, and that'll be impedimos. Impedimos. That's where your accent would go. But good job. All right. So just know that pretty much you group your verbs together. Know that as you see under consentir, well, you start seeing some of the same stuff. You see like the ERs all through these verbs under consentir. Advertir, convertir, divertirse, hervir. It's a pattern to this stuff. And you will, and one thing about it, let's say if the verb preferir, you hear somebody talking, they say prefiero or prefieres, they talk like that. If you heard anything otherwise, it's not going to sound right. If somebody said prefero, it's not going to sound right. You know you heard prefiero before. Eventually, it's going to get to that point where it's not going to sound right. You know it's not right.
So how
Okay.
would you conjugate sonreír?
Sonrío.
Mm,
I don't. Sonrío. You're gonna take that e out and put an I there, and then you put your ending. Sonrío. Sonríemos, sonríen. You see that? So you got a SONRE as a stem. That E has to come off, and you change the E to I. And so that's sonrí, and then you put the extra ending. Oh, sonrío, sonríes, sonríe, sonreímos, and sonríen.
So with nosotros, it is sonreímos.
Sonreímos.
Okay.
Sonreímos. It's not the emos.
Sonreímos.
Mm-hmm. Sonreímos. All right. Sonreímos. Sonreímos. So the verb adquirir is like consentir. You conjugate it as adquiero, and that's one of the interesting ones. Adquiero, adquieres, adquiere, adquirimos, and adquieren. Adquirir means to inquire. What's so intriguing about that is how I see the verb querer being conjugated in there. I see quiero, quieres, I see quiere, and I see quieren. Is that something?
Mm-hmm.
The verb reír, ríes, reímos, ríen. So I was right. Reímos and ríen. Now notice that sonreír and reír, you see reír inside of sonreír. If you ever see two verbs, if you ever see a verb inside of a verb, if you're not to conjugate the small verb, you can conjugate the big verb. It's gonna be the same thing. Just put it in there. If I can conjugate reír, I should be conjugate sonreír. Sonreír means what? To smile.
Mm-hmm.
But what does reír mean? Oh, I didn't know they had it on there. It's already on there. To laugh. Okay. I got it. All right. And we're going to skip the exercise. We're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead back to page number 20. And we're just going to take a look at some more verbs that's like that. These verbs, this group ends in UIR. They're verbs like, okay, let's read it. In verbs ending in UIR, except GUIR, I would never learn that. A Y is inserted after the U in all forms except those nosotros and nosotros. We never learned all that. Okay, so you got HUIR. How do you pronounce that, Miss Constance?
Ear?
I want to hear a hard one. It's huir.
Huir.
Huir, that means to flee. It gives you huyo, huye, huye, huimos, and huyen. So it gives you the Y in all forms, except in nosotros. So Y came out of nowhere. There are quite a few verbs that conjugate like that. Concluir, construir, contribuir, destruir, distribuir, incluir, influir, and sustituir. So if I want to say I conclude or I'm concluding, yo concluyo with a Y. Tú concluyes, él concluye, nosotros concluimos without the Y, and concluyen with a Y. Same thing like we've been doing. And we're going to keep on rolling. And number 4, here's some more verbs. IAR verbs and UAR verbs. Some verbs in IAR or UAR stress the I or the U, accent mark, in all forms except those for nosotros and vosotros. Enviar means to send. There's no accent mark in the infinitive. Now watch this. Envío, envías, envía, enviamos, envían. So all forms take an accent mark, except in nosotros. Why is that? Well, due to according to the rules of accents, if it didn't have an accent mark on it, that first word would be pronounced envío, and it'd be envías, envía, enviamos, and envían, and that's not what they want the word to say. I mean, they want the word to say enviar. They want to say envío, so they have to put the accent mark to show you this is where the accent mark should be, even though the rules of accents says it should be somewhere else.
Does it mean something else without the accent?
This word's no. It'll just be pronounced differently. I mean, it could be pronounced differently. If you don't put an accent mark there, you're basically saying envío. It doesn't mean anything else though. Continuar, same thing. To continue. Continuo. Now, see here, your accent marks on you. Continuo, continúas, continúa. Continuamos, and then continúan. Accent marks have to go there. If you didn't have an accent mark there, I would have continuo, and that's not what they wanted to say. Whoever made the language, they didn't want that. They want continuo. Here's some verbs like enviar. Confiar, confiar en, espiar, fiarse, guiar, resfriarse, and variar. So just be mindful that those verbs will take an accent mark all the way down, except nosotros. And then you have continuar, verbs like continuar, you got actuar, and graduarse. And don't forget those verbs. Take that accent mark. And let's move right along. Any questions up to this point? All right. Let's finish this one out here. Let's see. We have CER verbs and CIR verbs. You got verbs like vencer. That means to conquer or to overcome. It takes a Z, and the Z comes out of nowhere. Venzo. Verbs to conjugate like that are convencer and ejercer. GER verbs or GRR verbs. This is all the same stuff, guys. So it's really redundant. Dirigir means to direct, but in this type of verb, if a verb ends in GIR, this is going to take a J for the first person, and then it goes back to the normal. Dirijo, diriges, dirige, dirigimos, and dirigen. Only thing that's changed about that one is the first person. It takes a J. Verbs conjugated like that: afligir, coger, escoger, exigir, fingir, proteger, and recoger. So when I say I protect, I must say protejo, and that G turns to a J. Okay. So verbs ending in GUIR, like distinguir. distingo, distingues, distingue, distinguimos, distinguen. Let me point out that the UIR sound makes one sound. This is what's called a diphthong. This one sound, like distinguir. If I pronounce those three letters, I would have distinguir, and that's not what they want. They want distinguir, and that's called a diphthong, and they just make one sound. So that gives you distingo, distingue, distingue, distinguimos. It's not a diphthong. And distinguen, gen, not distinguin, distinguen, diphthong. All right. Let's see what we got going on here. Some verbs with the spelling changes also have have stem changes. Look at coser, to cook. Look at that whole thing. It's just out of control. Queso with a Z and the O changes to UE. Queses, quese, cocina. But thank goodness that I've never heard anybody use that verb.
Yeah, I thought it was cocinar.
Yeah, I heard cocinar. We use cocinar. I've never heard that verb before, so I mean I see why. Because that thing is a little retarded there. All right, and corregir now. That's something I use. Corregir. Just note that first E changed to an I, and then you had a J came out of nowhere. Corrijo. And then it goes back to the regular. Corrijo, corriges, corrige. Corregimos, and corrigen. Once again, guys, a lot of this is going to come with practice. So do not look at all this and say, wow, man, I can't learn all this. Yeah, you can. It'll come natural to you, believe me. But I just want to expose you to this stuff right here. And I think we're out of this right now. We'll go to a break. Okay, one more. Page 27. You have the verb seguir sitting there. Seguir means to follow, a very popular verb. And then look at the conjugation. Sigo. The UIR just jumped out the window. And the E changed to the I. Sigo. Sigues. Sigue. Seguimos. And siguen.
You don't have 27 because I see 26 and then I see 29.
I think 27 is the last page.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it's the last page. Okay. I'm sorry, I got it all paperclip wrong, man. Free, I forgot you were here. Okay. I'm like, who was that talking?
I know. Sorry.
Okay, so on page 27, you're gonna see conseguir, perseguir, and proseguir. Those are conjugated like seguir. So how do I say I get or I obtain? Yo consigo. What's easy about these three is the verb seguir is already conjugated for you. All I gotta do is put the letters in front of it. Consigo, consigues, consigue, conseguimos, and consiguen. Persigo, persigues, persigue, perseguimos, and persiguen, and so on. All right. Once again, do not kill yourself over these stem changing verbs, but do look at them and do get familiar with them. All you need to do is get familiar with one, and then all the rest of them will come to you when you hear it again. All right. So we'll take a break. It is 5:32. Let's come back at 5:40. I'm sorry. I need to give time to do this thing. Let's do 5:45. 5:45, and then we come back. We are going to start getting to the fun stuff now. So we're through the crazy stuff. And we're going to do some what do we want first? Gerunds. We're going to do future tense. Let's do gerunds first because we already had experience with this, I believe. So I see y'all at 5:45.